Well, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome aboard to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I'm your sensei, your griot, here to tell you a story. You know, what is a griot? Now, a griot is a elder and responsible, an adult who tells a story to all those who are young at heart, and open of mind, but not a child. Those who want to understand, who want to feel, who want to grow, who want to live. This is not a show for those who are stuck in their tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. No, this is a dreamy dreamland, a place where you can be awake. Breathe in through your lungs and breathe out. As you breathe in, you're inhaling the prana light. And before 2012, prana was the strongest energy force that gave our avatar, this mud puppet, this body. You are not your body. That's the first thing you need to know. Second, you aren't your soul. Your soul is strictly a server. Hello, Jane. Sending love. One. Lindsay, good evening, all. And there's a hole in the screen door. And what is the screen door? The screen door is what we perceive as reality. And why it's a screen is because certain things are let through that screen, and the door keeps other things out. We all have the ability to be that angel in our heart, that loving, that giving, that generous angel, that child, that innocent. And then because we have been living in a Piscean age for 16,000 or more years, we basically are pressured. Like it's being in this body is like being in a tight room. If you were ever kind of, claustrophobic, that's what you're in your body. Your spirit is across the universe. This body is not. And so that's the door. It separates, that's why we have, two hemispheres of our brain, our left and our right, right? And they communicate between each other. That's why we have two eyes. That's what gives us this element of perspective. Now, when I got by the Nazi nun in Hitler's Rifle Squad, HRS, Holy Redeemer School, she was straight up part of the rat line of the Vatican. And she had been known in Auschwitz as the milkmaid of pain and death. And you wish you were dead. And all through his story, we've had this conflict. And some say it's between good and evil. But really, good and evil is too subjective, right? Because there is no objectivity between good and now, there's a real difference between good and evil, good and bad. Because some things are done, for the betterment of the, war is not a good thing, ever, right? Violence is never a good thing, ever, right? But all our religions practice it. I just heard that, in India, a Hindu group had called for the annihilation of all the Muslims in India, 2 million people. They said that it's something that needs to be done. For the betterment of India, we need to kill all these Indians. And that was a small faction. It's no big deal. Really? I mean, there are all kinds of laws in India against hate speech and any of this. And the Supreme Court said, we better stop this. Government has done nothing. This is part of their political agenda. They don't want to say it is, but, that's part of their ruling political group there. So they're not going to put any kind of clamps on. Another 4 or 5 groups that are going to have these kind of rallies in the next few weeks. That's no one knows about that. There is a earthquake that occurred out there in the Pacific, right? And it obliterated the island and all the other islands that surround it. It's an island chain nation, and they had a 40-foot wave from the explosion of the volcano, and there's no one left. Quite a few people. There's nobody there. It's like a nuclear weapon went off. But they said, there's no radiation. But they haven't really sent anybody there to truly investigate it. It's just, oops, right? The explosion was heard, hundreds of thousands of miles away in other Pacific lands. And again, this is not getting, any kind of real coverage, right? There are many other kind of occurrences going on right in front of us, but we're so distracted by the Omicron and the January 6th event and that we have a Stepford wife as Jojo, the used car salesman, can't even read. Do you see the size of the teleprompter? He a couple of days ago he had the news folk in to ask him questions, and they were such softballs, and the teleprompter was as big as this mirror behind me, and it was totally blacked out. So the cameras from the news people couldn't see it. All it was this blacked out box, and it was right in front of Jojo, and he was like, and the letters were like that big. I mean, it's right in front of us, kids, right? And no one's talking about it, right? And now there are people, like Joe Rogan, dark journalism. On my morning show, someone, chatted me, hey, David Icke is on, London Real. Now that guy, he's straight up, in his suit. He's a businessman, but he's like, being either he is the loyal opposition or he is standing up to what's going on, right? It's to be seen, right? And other people, so I have a real, long group of people who contact me on, hey, and remember, don't believe a word I say. And if you want to get a hold of me at the dudawake42@gmail. And I would really, really, really appreciate it if somebody threw something in my PayPal account. I really could use it, right? Luckily, I'm stuck where I am. We had 10 inches of snow. And then it went into the 8-degree, like right now, it's like 4 degrees outside. Really, really cold. And why I'm warm is that I'm in this small little room, and it's probably the best insulated room in this place. And that curtain is over. There's only one window. The other rooms will have 3 and 4 windows, and they're like ancient windows. The guy who built this place, everything here is from the 20s. And they were taking down buildings downtown, and his friend was a demolisher, and all the doors, they all came from, the 20s, and the windows all came from the 20s, and they took them out. And so these windows are not safety glass. They're just single pane. They're not double pane. There is no insulation, none. So I have this nice, it's more than a blanket. It's really thick. So one little space heater and a very small room. It's warm. It's like, a good, 70 degrees in here, easy. But the other, outside that door, it's 40 degrees, right? And upstairs, John Boy, he's got this big room. If you ever seen the thing, so he's got a zillion heaters. So God, his electric bill is going to be. But outside, we have about, out of the 10 inches, it's going down to about 6. But it is as hard as concrete. It's frozen, frozen, frozen. So until we get a couple of days of 50-degree weather and some rain, it's not going anywhere. I could be here till May, and no one's getting up here because there are about 5 other people who live on the road, and I kind of called them up, and they're all, we're 2 miles to the blacktop. They're only a mile. One guy took an hour to just go down the hill. Going up, he couldn't get up. It was just ice, like ice skating. And another guy, he was going down today, and he was right at where it's pretty fit, and it kind of goes around, and there's a mountain here and a cliff there. And he said the trucks just kind of slid, and he said he just basically got to a point where the road dipped the other way. He said, but he was going off the cliff, and there was nothing he could do. He couldn't steer it. He couldn't hit the brakes. The wheels were just sliding across the ice. So no one's coming up here, and unless they have some serious hardware to get up here, a real 4-wheel drive, like a fire truck, a fire, a forest fire truck could get up here because they have gigantic wheels that have like little ice picks in them, 4-wheel drive. Some have treads, and so that kind of vehicle, like a tank, could get up here. But other than that, no, sorry. So until 50-degree weather, a couple of days and some rain, I'm not leaving here. So I'm like placed here, and luckily, not luckily, but praise Jesus, electricity's here, water's here, and I bought enough food. I spent the last amounts of money. When John was, we did not get any, I spent $700, and yes, nothing for us to eat, really. No vegetables, no rice, no potatoes, no onions. I bought all that. I bought bread. He bought a lot of olive oil, so that's good. We have more than enough olive oil, but that was about it, right? So, but we have enough of everything. And I bought a lot of cans of stuff because canned food is really good because they kind of cook it in the can. And even we didn't have heat, we could eat out of the can, and I have all vegetables. So we could, not a problem. So, but screen door, right? Has anyone been experiencing this kind of, just a moment ago, things were like this, but now it's like that. It's because we are in existing, these 2 dimensions are doing this. The Piscean age doesn't exist anymore, but it's inertia, 16,000 years of violence and war and killing and all of those past lives coming back over and over. And that's what Shakespeare talked about in Hamlet. End of Hamlet. Everyone's dead. He's killed everyone. He's listened to a ghost from his father. The voices, those voices are all around us. But those of us who consciously intend to focus on being their best self, those voices don't get in. They're there, but they don't get in because you are being your best and you're not letting your worst come in. We can all be that way. We can all be, they have all kinds of fancy names, bipolar, a manic depressant. They have all these great names. But the medical model needs those names to sell you a pill, right? To make a profit. I was had many different, like I keep saying, I have more degrees than the thermometer, but they're irrelevant, right? Because they represent a worldview that doesn't exist anymore. It's being pushed upon us, but it doesn't exist. I am a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropological alchemist. What is that? So, shamanic, right? I'm not a shaman, but what I do see through is a frame, and I see a shamanic frame, rather than the present Piscean age rules itself by a dialectic of materialism, of things, of stuff, whereas the shamanistic is a frame of all our relations. Every feathered, every skinned, every scaled, every furred creature there is. Anthony, good to see you. The gang is here. Jane, Lynn, Anthony, right? So we're all here for all our relations, and not every animal, not just every animal, not just every fish, every insect, but all the plants are our relations. Every biome is our relation. Every bacteria, virus, germ are relations. And so I'm a really sick person, meaning physically. I swam through the sea of corporate hedonism for 10 years and got paid ridiculously well for really not doing what people would think hard work. I was a negotiator, right? And I never failed, so I got paid really well to negotiate deals and relationships and things that most people couldn't. Courts couldn't do it, lawyers couldn't do it. I could do it. So I was the one guy. My street cred was he never fails. And so for 10 years, I, lived the life those guys did. And I made a really good salary for working like 11 weeks of the year. Right, that's all I took. And people say, well, if you worked all year, you'd be a millionaire. I said, I didn't need that. My grandma had 28 rules, and one of hers was to live like a millionaire rather than be one. Right? And my whole life has been this cavalcade of experiences, and that I've been awake for all of them. I've been aware of all of them. I didn't just, be unconscious. Now, I can be a moron. That's a different thing than being unconscious. But I can remember being inseminated. I can remember my past life. I was a car hop in a thing called Lost Vegas, meaning vague, meaning unknown, us, all of us, And the head honcho of that whole universe that some people would call heaven, but not really, because if you understand what heaven is, just because angels were there, not all angels are angels. They're not nice, and most angels aren't very nice, and they have, you think, we have some strange belief structures. They surely do. And so, and they really believe it, to the point they're ready to annihilate universes. Now, there's so many of them, so many parallel universes. Hey, so what's a few missing, right? So if you're aware of the thing called deja vu, that's when you kind of experience yourself kind of going into one universe or coming out that one and going into another. That's deja vu. You're seeing you're seeing yourself in two. It's like you're going down a rail, a track, and and that's our life. We can't get off this railroad, and we're going down this track, and then there's like a switch. It gets thrown, and you kind of go this way or that way, and whichever way you were going and feeling comfortable, this is my life, you're brought into another one. And that point where these two lives kind of do this, and you're in the middle, and you go, ooh, and that's where you see this deja vu. That's what deja vu is. You're kind of changing from one universe into another, right? And so the shamanic viewpoint is understanding this, right? And accepting this and not doubting it. And I don't believe anything because that's a construct, oh, I believe in this, or this, and everything else, it doesn't exist, or anything else is like a threat to my belief structure. So I'm going to kill you or stamp on it or be threatened by it or be scared of it. Fear. Ooh, I'm scared. Ooh, I'll do anything you say. Just take this fear away. Oh my God. Oh, we're all going to die. So we all die. What big deal? I've died 6 times. What's the big deal, And I've worked in hospitals. I've seen a lot of people die. I was around in New York City in the early 70s and 80s where a lot of, and I worked in the theater and I worked in nightclubs and in the West Village. I worked, you know, took care of about 20 different, you know, drag bars and drag houses and, drag theaters and all these great gay homosexual people. Yeah, my predilection isn't quite that, but they were just as nice as anybody else who was nice. And half the people, or more than that, three-quarters of people in the New York theater were gay or bi, right? So I had all, did I, from my experience, were any of them evil, terrible people? No. When I was a little kid, and I used to hang with my dad when he was still in the military zone of Strategic Air Command, it's Bird Colonel. And my dad, yeah, you want to go see? And once you're in that level, even when you kind of semi-retire and you go into private life, there is no difference between once you're in, you're always in, right? And I saw that happen to my dad. And I realized, when I went to different bases, went to, the different national laboratories. And, at 6, I saw an above ground nuclear test out there in Nevada. I started to see other realities of what's really kind of going on. And as a 6-year-old, I had no disbelief. And as an individual spirit, I've always been an innocent. I mean, I have no doubt, right? I believe in what I see. I believe in what I feel and hear. I believe what I feel in my gut, right? And because this nun crushed this eye sees whole different frequencies from this eye. So I have a lot deeper perception than my depth perception. This ear was, the little bone in there was crushed, So these 2 ears don't work the same way that most people's do. So I have a Doppler, hearing, I have like sonar in my head. So I can be in a dark forest, no moonlight, no, barely starlight, no light at all. And if I hear something over there, I know exactly where it is. And with these 2 eyes and these 2 ears not working like most people's stuff, I can see things, that most people can't see. So I can see, when I give people, especially people I have no idea who the frick they are, I just see them on this, hey, come here, let me talk to you. Well, let me look at your palm. I can do a cold reading like nobody's business, I can see exactly what's inside them, right? And and luckily, I have to go into state to truly see all that. Because luckily, not luckily, but the gods have been generous to me and blessed me with I have a lot of things. I have charcoal legs. I have arthritis, osteoarthritis. I have diabetes. I have high blood pressure. I have about 20 other things. That should be killing me, but it's not. It should be putting me into extraordinary, unbelievable pain, but it doesn't. Now, when I wake up in mornings, yes, I'm in terrible pain because overnight my body unplugs, the autonomic system, and so when I wake up, all my nerves that normally within this neural net that isn't like most people's, it takes those distractions of pain and inability. People like my podiatrist and my bone doctor and my endocrinologist don't know how I'm existing. My eye doctor doesn't know how I see. Now, he says that the procedure that he has been doing to me for the last 2 years, which was designed just to keep you, once you get the kind of damage to my retina and my, visionary systems occurs through diabetes, I should be blind. But they have this process that they shoot this goo in you, and it keeps you, it doesn't fix it, but it keeps you from going blind. Now, I've had that procedure for 2 years, I think 19 procedures. And a very, very, very small portion of the people who get this procedure, it actually somehow doesn't fix it, but stops it. Meaning this procedure is supposed to, once you go in that direction, you need it for the rest of your life to be able to see. And then they have to, at certain points they have to operate and do more, strategic and more invasive things. But he says that my eyes are actually getting better, and because of this, I have very, very good doctors who take care of me, and they've all put me on these lists where I am a lab rat to their procedures. So I get the kind of health care that super rich people get, but because I am, ridiculously have no, what's the right word? Liquidity or assets, but I'm not poor. I live like a millionaire on nothing, right? And people, how do you pay your bills? Well, they get, if you put some money in my PayPal, that's how I pay my bills, right? And I don't have to really beg you, or I just kind of remind you, like, hey, if you want to get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42 on Gmail, right? You can call me. I mean, you can send me an email. Give me your phone number. I'm on Whip or something like that, Vibe or whatever it's called, and WhatsApp. So I have two little things that a lot of you who live around the world, it's point-to-point kind of communications. Yep. So we, on email, share our numbers, and then we talk to each other. Like Lana, I talk to her. Anthony, I talk to him, and a few others I talk, but they don't like to be announced. And I'm very good with people's privacy. I don't spill the beans on anything anyone tells me, right? Because I have that kind of ethical nature, right? Now I have a number of doctors who take care of me, and in the deep green, that healthcare it's good to have. Not as good as Carillion here, but the guys who take care of me, they don't represent Carillion. They represent other things, but some of their offices are within that structure. So I'm kind of in that structure, but not of that structure. And so that's how I get through. There are a lot of people who are my clients who still want to know my opinion on things. So they, put things in the old PayPal, and that's very nice. And so that's how I get by, right? But it's always, I'm in the flow, I'm, at ease rather than being diseased, right? And that's what my endocrinologist, you're just at ease. You have this level of homeostasis that, I've never seen. You have all these things that you shouldn't be as good a, shape as you are. You shouldn't be walking. You shouldn't be breathing. You shouldn't be able to see. Your heart shouldn't be working, I mean, you should have, we wanted to do a quadruple bypass on you, and you seem not to need one. You stopped us from cracking your chest. You stopped us from cutting off your legs. You stopped us from, how do you do this? I do it because I serve love's co-creation, not myself. I'm here to be the we in me, not myself. I do this show because of you folks right there, because I love you, and I put this energy into this show that goes through it and goes out into the World Wide Web. Thousands of people watch this thing every time I do it, but it only shows up like, at the end of this, and I look at, all the people watch, it'll say like 180 people watched for accumulated hours of, you've done it for 3 hours, but, 62 hours of watch time, right? Meaning all those people kind of watched the whole frigging thing instead of 2 seconds here and 2 seconds there. And in the morning when I go to do another one and I look at the algorithm, it says that only 40 people watched, and they only watched for 8 hours. It's like, really? So, again, the powers that be, they let me do this, but they keep me down on the farm, And that's fine. I don't care. John goes, if you did this, you do blah, 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 blah. You get a lot of people watch. And he wants me to do it because then he wants me to tie it all through his channel. Just like when I started doing this, he did it surreptitiously. He would have his little phony thing and he'd like hide it, just like, ooh. And he could, he'd catch all, like when I give the story of Bill Crone, even though I'm blind, I can see what he's doing, and I'm just sure, okay. And then I saw how he edited what I said and tried to turn it into something else, which didn't really happen. But still, it was, once I learned, hey, I can do this, and I did it, right? I put myself on my own YouTube channel, and here I am. And every time he says, shoot something, and he totally gives the wrong address, so it'll go to his channel. Now, I couldn't care less, because I'm not really, this whole thing ain't monetized, and, so what I'm at here is to talk to you, not to monetize this, because I know that I'll be taken care of, every time, something happens. Like my car really needed some serious service. I took it to the guy and he went through everything and said, oh, well, you need this, and this, or the car is just going to fall apart. You're going to be going down the highway and your wheels are going to go this way and you're going to be going that way, and that'll be the end of you and your car. I said, how much is that? He goes, oh, $2,800. I said, well, how much does the oil change cost? He goes, oh, $18. I said, well, just change the oil. That's all I could afford. So a friend of mine came and got me. We went over to a Chinese restaurant. The guy had my phone number. About 40 minutes later, he called me up and said, so is the car ready? He goes, no, something really strange has happened. I said, what's that? He goes, well, we put everything into, you've been coming to us, for as long as you've had this car. And, we put that all on the computer. That's how we knew how much it cost. And, I went to just, hit the button to just send, you having an oil change, and it said that there was $2,000 in your account. I said, what? He says, yes. And we have no idea where it came from or who did it, or it just says it's $2,000. We can do $2,000 work on your car. And that's exactly what you need for your car to be safe. The other 800, yes, we need, you kind of need new brake pads, but you don't really, not at this time. There's another little thing, why it rattles. There's kind of this little piece of rubber but it's not really, it won't make your car any safer. It'll just keep rattling. Maybe something else will rattle loose, but other than that, not a big deal. But, that's the $800. But we can do everything else. You want it? I said, well, can you give me the money? And he goes, no, we can only do work. I said, well, go for it. I said, so what's it going to be, like 2 days? He said, oh, no, just by a miracle, other people haven't shown up. So there's amount of time and people that can work on it. And we have all the parts here. I said, really? He said, yeah, we don't have to wait for anything. We got them all here. We want to do another, we have other people have the same car as you do. And they just happened not to come in and called up and said they didn't want it. So all the parts you need are here, ready to go on your car. And we have time to do it because all the people who are scheduled, they're not showing up. So we have the 2.5 hours that we need and the 2 people who can do it, and you'll have your car in 3 hours. I said, really? He said, yep. And everything will be fixed. New tires, this, that, and your car will be safe but inadequate. You'll still need your brakes changed soon, another 500,000-600,000 miles, who knows? But, right now they're okay, but they definitely need, and it's not something that's really dangerous. Your brakes will always work. They will just start squeaking, and they're not there yet. So that happened 2 months ago, right before Thanksgiving, right? I have no idea where that came from, but it showed up in their computer. He called me up and said, hey, this is kind of strange, but we can do everything your car needs. And there's the money, we had the time, we had the parts. What do you want? I said, do it. And so I just stayed longer with my friend in the Chinese restaurant. Then he drove me back, and my car was ready. There you go. That's how I live, right? That's how we all live, because we live in an abundant planet. And the only thing that gets in our way of our abundance is our fear. And our friend, the canary in the coal mine, is the example of that. As Anthony calls him, he is the people's saint of truth. Because, like, if you watch this morning's show and yesterday morning show, you can see it. I mean, he represents it straight there. You see that line there, this angel, this generous, this sweet person here, and this demon over here. Because he's those demons are all around us. He's just letting them in. And, I'm here to try and help him, and I do, but he really has to step up. And if he can't, there's not much I can do. I can, while I'm here, but you can see how I attempt to, people go, you're a saint, you're so patient. No, it's, I've been trained to do this. Yes, I haven't been doing it for like the way I was trained to do it in hospitals and do it for patients. But when I was in that scene, and I have a knack for it, first I went to school to do it. And then as I was doing that, I was running a program. And in that program, I was in schools and hospitals and prisons. And we were working on a protocol that helped people turn away from their darker self and work towards being their best, right? And so I had a lot of experience for 2 years. I put together a protocol of like in the process and the documentation and the data collection, so we could put together a PowerPoint to the powers that be who were paying for this, because we were this whole system was to help revamp the courts, the jails, the hospital medical scene, and the schools, right? And we worked in all of those environments. And as I was doing it, I was in different universities. I went to lectures. I would lecture. I teach this, all this. So I had more time within the dynamic of matriculation, of getting, undergraduate degree in psychology and, a master's in social work. I had more time more experience, more, my credentials were unbelievable. At a certain point, when we were wrapping this all up, and I was going to be on the group that were going to bring it forth, bring it home, my supervisor, my boss, not the big boss over here, but the person who was running the whole thing, and I was just running it down here, he said, you created this protocol. You're going to have to give the presentation, and they're going to want to know what kind of degrees. So here's all the degrees you need. Just here they are. And I said, you have more time in. You've been with more brilliant professors over these last 3 years. This, if you were going to put, the dynamics of matriculation against to what you've done, you've outdone anybody who matriculated to get to this point. So you not only deserve these, you know it better than anybody. So here's the paper, so you can just show it to them and they feel okay. And then when they ask you questions, you can be the voice of authority. And so that's how I got those degrees. Now, my original degree was in theater arts and electrical engineering, but when I was an infant, 6 months old, and I crawled over to the electric socket and stuck the knife in the thing, I was a floating ground. I wasn't touching anything that was ground. So I kind of got a little jingle of the current, and I could sense that it was talking to me, right? Not like I'm talking to you, but it gave me this peripheral view. Again, a shamanic point of view. I saw energy, and I could see energy in people that most people can't see. But you can, meaning, I'll show you how to do this. So if you're looking right here, right, and you have your peripheral vision over here, right? So if you're looking at somebody who's normally lit by, let's say, fluorescent light above in an office, and you look at them straight in the eye, but push your peripheral vision out to here, you will see right on either side where your peripheral vision is around here, you will see the energetics, right? You'll see the prana. You will see the parallel universes, right? And that's what shaman do, right? Now, I do that, but shaman do a whole lot more. And that's why I'm a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. So my worldview is shamanic, meaning everything's connected. It's the we and me, right? I'm the artist in the first person, that person who takes that piece of charcoal from the fire and does the drawing because they want to express what they're feeling and seeing and putting it all together into an image, right? That's over here. So the most honest is that artist in the first person. And then, I'm a griot. So the spoken word is the next most honest thing. And then people started to write things down. And when you see the Chinese and Japanese and the Persian and the Hebrew written languages, each letter of their alphabet stands for a word or a symbol or like man or woman, but not only that, but in the six different degrees. And like when I've done guided meditations with you guys and brought you into your Akashic record, and I have you visualize into your Akashic when you open it up and you eliminate all of the negativity, and you can see what's going on in the Akashic record. It's like a big movie screen and 28 little dimensions, 28 dimensions. Like we are a multi-dimensional creature, but because we are fooled by our mud puppet self, our avatar, and through our very limited, five senses, all we see of the universe is 0.00094% of the universe. That's all we get through our senses. So we've had to invent, instruments like infrared, instruments that measure infrared and radio waves and microwaves and other energy sources, and so we've been able to perceive this through that shamanic point of view. We don't know it's that, right? And the alchemist, right? And those are the two bookends of, so I'm a shamanic, psycho-social, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. So psycho, what's that? That is the perception of the individual's worldview. That's our psycho, right? What we're looking at, what we're seeing. And, a good portion of the population sees this because they believe that's what they're seeing. So they will not want to see that peripheral. They won't want to see, the parallel universe. They just want to see what they believe, and that what the, basic story that they're told, that his story is what they're believing, right? Nothing else, right? That's all they believe, right? So they're stuck on that belief. So they'll kill you because of that belief. They will, do anything, because pushing them outside of their belief structure makes them anxious, right? And then they don't have any ease, so they become diseased. That's when they start hearing voices and seeing things, hearing voices that are actually always there and seeing things that are actually always there, but because it goes against their belief, it rocks their world. Now, someone who has an open mind, someone who has the innocence of a child, doesn't get fearful from that. They go, what is it? They keep going back and back and back to look for perspective. And that's that whole thing that I am is a perspective, So your psychology is the kind of accepted belief of the powers that shouldn't be manifested by the hidden hand, through the gullibility, which we all are, of folks who will hear the narrative and only want to believe that narrative that is told to them, that if they believe it, they will be safe, they'll be secure, they'll be fine, right? But not really. Because if you're constantly being forced into being violent, being angry, being upset, being confused, and that's the belief structure that's the sociopathic belief structure we live in, right? Yep. Psychopathy. Yep. Hey, Lana. Hey there, Fish Anthony. So that's what is the screen door. And there's a hole right now in the screen door. So there's a lot of stuff coming through that normally is kept out. Now, people are starting to see it, and this little pandemic thing is like it's forced half the population of the planet to take the red pill because, 3 or maybe 90% of the third world hasn't got a shot to begin with. And now they're pushing the first world and the second world to get, booster shot every 3 days. It's like our friend Awake with JP. He has a really hilarious one. He's wearing a life jacket and he's trying to get into a restaurant. The guy's, oh, no, can't get in. You need another life jacket. And the guy goes, what? I put on this life jacket because it's, well, no, now it's, it's worth chance. You could drown, but I got no life jacket on. No, you need 2 now, right? Or that little card we gave you, your diplomatic immunity is you'll be considered a threat to public health and we can kill you if you don't get another life jacket. And so JP is really great. He is the Will Rogers of the 21st century. He's hilarious, and he's got that whole thing of cynicism, his humor, sarcasm is truly amazing. He's just hilarious. And he's like full of truth. I mean, how he goes after, the hidden hand and the powers that shouldn't be and all the sock puppets, and those morons lie, but those lies kind of floated over the last 70 years. We've been lied to, it was a lone gunman, there's always a lone gunman. Even though the bullets came from 20 different directions and there are 52 holes in the guy, and the guy who is, it's like Sirhan. Robert Kennedy's brains were blown out by a 38. And Sirhan's gun was a 22. And he just was like, he was not, So they found all the bullets from his gun that were like in the ceiling and down in the floor. And he didn't hit anybody. All the bullets they got, but the bullet that blew Robert Kennedy's brains out was a 38. And there were a number of people with guns back there who could have, while Sirhan's on, they could have just quietly went over, put the gun next to Robert's head, and bam, blew his brains out, right? And it was everybody and his brother had cameras and everything. And what was truly interesting is that the powers that be collected all those people. I had friends who were photojournalists who were there, and they got their film taken away. And the ones who got all their film back, the ones who didn't capture anything on their film. Same with the videotapes and the moving film that was shot. So there are a ton of witnesses there, but everyone, if you've ever been part of a court case or watched one where an accident happened and they had witnesses, every witness has, it was a white car, it was a brown car, a gold car, a silver car, there's a black man driving, a yellow man driving, a woman driving, it's like, and this is the everyday, and that's the screen door. But the hole in the screen door is when stuff gets through that, the narrative is not, you're not wanting to see that in the narrative, right? But stuff is getting through. It's like, uh-oh. And it's like we are all those little parallel universes that are right there that if you just stand back far enough and look straight ahead and look at your peripheral vision, you can see this stuff, right? So the worldview is your psyche. Psychosocial. Social is like your, your sexual proclivity, your what your job is, where you live, what your hobbies are, what your sexual all your orientations, right? Which are your kind of what flavors of ice cream you like, right? That's your orientation, right? So the psychosocial, all your orientations. Cultural, where grandma came from, and all the holidays, and all the foods from your forefathers, and your you know characteristics of your traditions. That's psychosocial, cultural. Forensic is you take all of this apart. You look at all the threads from whatever direction they're coming, and you weave it into a tapestry, and that's what anthropology is. It's that tapestry of everything where you step back and you try to have a perspective that you're not being prejudiced by your beliefs. And I used to always say, I talked to people who had these beliefs and opinions, and I said, boy, you're really prejudiced. What? Some of my friends are black. And I said, no, moron, that's racism. Prejudice is when you believe in anything, and at the point where you'll disbelieve everything else. You don't believe anything else. All these lines in the sky, you're not going to believe that they're chemtrails. Oh, they're just airplanes. And why do those lines stay there all day? And then you can see the upper atmosphere wind blowing them across the sky. And then 3 hours later, the sky is no longer blue, it's silver. And so there's metals, and I don't believe that. That's no. Don't say it. The world is flat. No, the world is round. The world is flat. The world is round. These are beliefs. And those beliefs stop you from trying to understand anything else that you can't quite fathom. You don't want to look. You want those blinders. You want those horse blinders. So you don't look at your peripheral, and that's why they put them on horses, because those guys have real amazing peripheral vision, and they don't want them to see that shit because it might skittish them. So they put them like this, so all I can see is straight ahead, and that's us being blinded by his story, right? Of the powers that shouldn't be, the hidden hand, the useless sock puppets. The sock puppets are the politicians. We had the best politicians money can buy. So, in a meditation, I was told to forgive my prejudice. Yep, exactly. First person you got to forgive is yourself, right? First person you got to love is yourself, because then you can forgive and love everyone else. I had a vision about it, then I let it go. Exactly. You have to let everything go. All those. Oh, I want. I'm going to pay my bills. Oh, I want my children. Oh, well, if you want your children, you let whatever is standing in the way of being with your children. Oh, I can't go visit them. It's so hard. No, you let that go. Oh, but the people treat me so bad. You let that go. You focus on loving your children. That's it. When you focus on loving your children, then all that stuff that makes you anxious and crazy doesn't exist. Because the only thing that's important is loving your children, right? And once you love yourself, you can love your children. And then you can let go of all the fear and anxiety you have, and you can then have that ease. And you won't be dis-eased, dissing things, dissing people, dissing situations, dishonor, disability, disrespect. All those disses make you dis-eased, right? So your dreams are, your best psychotherapist is your dreams. That's what, we as psychotherapists, we put on the couch. So tell me about your dreams. Now, the worst thing a psychotherapist does is press their prejudice on your dreams. The best way you could deal with your dreams are you have this little cell phone thing as a recording device. You can push record and you can talk into it, So you turn all the bells and whistles so it doesn't wake you up. You put it just in reach, 3 feet away on the bedside table, not next to your head, but 3 feet away, just so you don't get out of bed. Just lean over, pick it up, hit the button, record. Wow, I just dream about blah, 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 blah. Because your subconscious is wired straight to your mouth. People say, you need to write your dreams down. Well, you can't, because it's a different part of your brain. And when you try to write it down, it's putting it into a spell. Why do you think they call it spelling? That's what you're doing. You write a word in English, you are spelling. And if you study linguistics, you realize that the English language is a manufacture of German and Latin and Greek and all these places where the Hebrew nation had been, right? So the English language is all these Greekified, Romified, Anglified, Germanic uses of Hebrew, but reversed. Every English word is a reversed version of Hebrew, right? And Hebrew, each letter of the alphabet represents not just a word, but a character representing a thing within the cultural dynamic, right? 6 of them. Each letter represents 6 of these, and they change even more when you have syntax on them, right? Plus, each letter of the alphabet stands for a number. And that's what, the Kabbalah is about, is taking that information, looking for the key, and realizing the code within it. Like Hammurabi's code, that was it, right? So we are surrounded by all of this information. And, in the mystery schools would call it, the occult or the esoteric, right? And those words just mean hidden knowledge. And one deals with one frame of hidden knowledge and the other deals with another, right? And it's not devil worshiping or Satanism or any of that. Now, those entities of evil, and that's what Satanism really is. It's evil. And what is the evil of Satanism? It is ego's materialism, taking away the sacred from love, meaning in a deeper understanding of the Old Testament, you realize, especially when, there are many little stories in it. And one of the best I like to use as a reference point is when the burning bush showed up and talked to Moses for the first time. And most smart boy, he understands if you ask somebody their name, it references everything about them. And that's what your name is supposed to do. So he asks the burning bush, so what's your name? Who are you? Where are you coming from? What am I doing here? And why should I even listen to you? Right? And in King James, it says that the burning bush said, I am who I am. No. The only person who says that is Popeye, Boop, boop, I'm Popeye Sailor Man. I am who I am. Right? That's the only guy who says that, right? And so on the other side of the coin, the burning bush says to Moses, I am a work in progress, and you are my reflection. And I can only see in what direction I need to go by watching you, meaning humanity, and how you respond to your lives. You are a work in progress. We are a twin flame. And nothing can be created without love. My love for you and your love for me. And that's what we should be, celebrating within our spiritual nature. And Jesus in the New Testament, he never talks about soul. He only talks about spirit. And that's what we are. We are spirits. And that is the thing that lives forever, spirit, because it is at the Big Bang, bango, and it wasn't like a gun. It wasn't like bang, and then the universe just went this way, and then like a bullet, it slows down, so boom, right? No. They have gotten instruments to realize, through quantum physics, they first said, oh, there's this stuff called dark matter. We can only see this much of the universe, but there's like this much. And we can measure that through a number of mathematical vehicles, that there's so much more mass in the universe. And it doesn't represent in photonic or incandescent light. There's this other light, that they're just starting to be able to measure. And it really affects us and what's going on right now, because 2012 was the end of the Piscean age. It's gone. It's stopped. But it's inertia of all that evil of the ego is still moving along, and it's going into the Aquarian age, right? Which started in 1960. It started to appear that you could see its effect. 1965. That's why those guys, it's the age of Aquarius, and they really. That's if you go get that song, it tells it all. And that other guy in the year, blah 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 blah. If God is still alive, they again, they tell the story. It's getting a little toasty in here. I turned the heater up a notch. It's good to be naked. This is how we were born. Oh my arthritis. See, just doing that causes like ridiculous pain. And I kind of broke this shoulder and this collarbone. So, and I did that as a young lad of 23. And, but it still kind of works. But I can't move it. What I did was I just let gravity take it down. So, that big equals MC square thing that just happened to my shoulder. And that's why the pain. Now, if I wasn't in, a harmonic homeostasis of meditation at this minute, I would be on the floor crying because that was pretty painful there. But I'm not, because I'm in this, awakened consciousness. My conscious intent is to talk to you and not be in total pain, right? So that's why I'm not in pain. Oh, how are we doing? Let's see. We've been going on now. Oh, look at that. 1 hour, 1 minute, and 11 seconds. I love it when that happens. There's 5 of you, 5 thumbs up. And good morning, good evening, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. And if you want to talk to me, get a hold of me at the dudeawake42 at Gmail, dudeawake42 at Gmail, all lowercase, all one thing, dudeawake42 at Gmail. And if you want to put anything in PayPal and they ask who do we put it with, dudeawake42 at Gmail. I could really use it, really like it. Come on, throw something in there. And how about some more thumbs up? And how about more subscriptions? And how about hitting that bell? They keep unplugging people, They won't let me get past 500, even though thousands of people watch this thing all the time. And I'm sure they're subscribing. I never get above 500 because then I would be jacked up in the algorithm. More people would watch. But again, that's not my concern, but having likes and all of that, not my concern. And I don't have this thing monetized. Now, if somebody like, Netflix or Mr. Jeff Bezos with his Amazon platform, any other platform, wanted to, I would think in the most amazing show, they have these reality shows, like Housewives of New Jersey. If John and I were a reality show and I have a friend of mine who's in, she's an amazing artist and she's heading to Korea. And she's all about Korea. She's all in on Korea. Korean culture is everything. And she's, educated me on that. And I was somewhat aware. I have Korean friends. And how I look at the Korean people, they are like the Irish of the Orient. Loads of fun. A lot more fun than the Japanese. Japanese, they drink like a fish. And they do have kind of fun. I mean, it's fun to go out and they do fun things. But they're always so freaking depressed, And, I used to read Mishima all the time, and a brilliant poet, great storyteller. But his whole thing was to commit, seppuku, ritual seppuku, meaning taking that little knife and pull out your intestines. And the mark of what a big man you are is how many feet of intestines you can pull out of your gut before you keel over, right? From bleeding and being in shock. So I don't see that as it, right? And the Chinese, they're a beautiful culture, beautiful people. I had 3 great Chinese healers teach me Chinese herbs, teach me Tai Chi energy, Chinese energy, martial arts, acupuncture, um, and their version of cranial sacral. So I learned all those techniques when I was at the VA. I was at the VA I was supposed to be at the VA for 6 years. All right. When I got there, I was just a bedpan guy, clean people from, crapping and pissing all over themselves, dealing with kids who were basketball stars um, last year and now they have no legs and no arms, right? And they're like pretty upset. And they learned that, after being in Vietnam for about 5 months, they realized it was a worthless piece of shit, and they were just there to make Lockheed and Boeing lots of money. And then they lost arms and legs and maybe both the sight of their. This one kid, he was like, there's a book about the same thing about World War I, where this kid gets hit by a mortar shell, loses his legs, his arms, and the front part of his face. So he has no eyes and no mouth to talk, nothing to smell. He can hear, though. And that's all he's got is hearing. And he can feel his touch. And the only thing that really works is his penis, right? And so he's in this ward. And basically the military and the doctors, he's half his head got blown up. He's, just a living vegetable. And we're going to keep him alive just to experiment on it, right? So they do all these things that like unbelievably painful. And, when his body is like, jiggling around, they say, oh, that's just nerve response. He's really brain dead. He doesn't really feel this. But this guy was a telegrapher, right? And one of his nurses, her daddy, she was out there in the West, and her daddy was a telegrapher. And she learned to be a telegrapher because when daddy had to do something, she was the only one who was smart enough to listen and write down the telegraphy. And, so she learned it really well. So this kid is there and he is whacking his head against the bed back to communicate, hey, I'm here. You motherfucker, stop doing this, blah, blah, blah. And the girl's telegrapher. So she tells her doctor and he goes, oh, you're a woman and you're just a nurse and I'm a doctor. I know everything. Shut up. And she won't shut up. She just keeps, because she basically is his nurse. And so she rubs him and then she she sees a gigantic erection and she takes care of it for him and they fall in love. He's like, you're the only person who's showing me any kind of kindness and you're protecting me and I love you and tell me about you. And she would, he could hear, she would talk to him. Right. And so, anyway, she goes all the way up the line and then this one guy says, okay. So he brings a telegrapher in and boop, 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 boop. And the guy goes, yeah, he's doing, he's telling us exactly that we're torturing him. He's feeling terrible and da-da-da. And please just let him be alone with his nurse and put him in the room and stop, experimenting on him. And everyone freaks out. So what happens? The girl gets put in jail for life for treason. And the boy gets put some other place where he's never seen again, but, pretty much he's continually experimenting on it. Now he can like, and they can get real amazing feedback on this crap they're doing to him. And that book was called Johnny Got His Gun. And it was written in 1919. And immediately it was censored. And that book, if you owned that book, that was an act of treason and you would go to jail for 50 years. And that book did not get legally printed, but it was like all around, some people were printing it and handing it out, especially the Quakers. And so go look that book up, Johnny Got His Gun, right? And so that was me. I was dealing with kids who were like that, right? And nobody wanted to touch them. Nobody wanted to clean their shit. Nobody wanted to take care of them. They would just, all they wanted to do is put them on morphine and keep them total, and then let them die. They would overdose them, right? And virtually all of those kids, so they get blown up in Vietnam. Helicopters get them to a hospital that stabilizes them, right? So it's, their hearts and lungs and other things were working, even though they lost their arms and their legs and their faces, they were still human and their brains worked and they could feel everything. They could hear everything, couldn't quite communicate that well. But the ones who didn't lose their face, on the ones that were burnt by napalm. I mean, so many kids I worked on who were blown up and napalmed by our own Air Force. And there were kids who were, the people who were calling in the fire, and these F-105s are coming in at supersonic speed. Just oops, a few foot, the Conger here, and the guy calling in the thing gave him the right coordinates, but the Air Force guy was, he wanted to get home, to go on a date or something, and that's pretty much you look at World War II, Korea, Vietnam, all the other wars between Vietnam and Iraq, and then 9/11, and everything about 9/11 is as fugazi, or FUBAR. You know what FUBAR means? Fucked up beyond belief. So, Jack getting whacked, that was FUBAR, and he was one of them. Grandpa Eisenhower, hours before Jack gets sworn in. Jack gets sworn in around 1 in the afternoon. Eisenhower, they're having a big whoop-de-doo, so Eisenhower says, hey, I want to give my final address to the people in the morning. So about 10 in the morning, that people are, it's like half of the people aren't going to work. They're like, woo, Jack, yeah, oh, he's so cute. Oh, look at his wife. Oh, those kids. So Eisenhower says, hey, listen, I was the head general of World War II. I know all about, I've been in the military my whole freaking life. I've dealt with, contractors. I've been part of this element of, the extreme development of the military industrial complex. It's always been there, but not like this. And he explains the whole thing, how the money, how the politics, how the military industrial part has gone in and bought the politicians. And you go watch that speech, and he really puts it on. And you can tell that he knew all about it, and he's still president for like 4 hours. And so he was going to use that place and tell the American people about what the fuck is going on, and that we are like a railroad train going a million miles towards fascism, and you better watch out for this, right? Because what he wanted to do was, after Jack took over, he was just going to go back to the Midwest and play golf. That's it. He wasn't going to do anything else. He had a few, times when someone cornered him, and he would answer a very interesting answer, but he wanted nothing to do with it. He didn't want to end up like FDR. FDR allegedly died of a brain hemorrhage. No, FDR ate his frigging gun, meaning he had done so many evil things that he couldn't stand himself anymore. And his body was just caving in, and he couldn't wait to fucking die, because he's probably going to live another 30 years in a misery of pain and self-loathing. So he ate his frigging gun. And that's why he had, a closed coffin, because it's pretty obvious that he just stuck the gun and blew the top of his head off. It was, that would have been a pretty amazing brain aneurysm to blow the top of his head off. So all of this stuff is so right in our face. But again, you got the blinders on. We don't want to see, I don't want to hear, all my brothers and sisters, smart people, went to school, blah, 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 blah. My sister always tells me how smart she is. And she hates it when I tell her stuff, because it breaks her belief structure, Oh, Al, that's just your opinion. I said, yeah, but you might be wise to listen to it, because she's got 8 kids and about 15 grandchildren that are going to have to live in this new world order. And she probably will too, because if she, she's in her 80s, and if she lives as old as my grandparents did, they all made it to 100, and my mom lived to be 103, and my dad lived to be 98, and my sister doesn't really have any of the, and we all have the problems with my parents, but she was pretty good at, she didn't do like I did. I was in great shape until I was about 45, when I started working for the corporate world. And then when I was, 58, and I started working for the desperate lawyers, and started eating, 300,000 calories a day, for 10 years, I lived unbelievable hedonism. I mean, just because I thought the world, I had enough information to say, well, when's the world going to end? Oh, any second now. And it didn't. But I just kept partying like it was 1999, and I gained 240 pounds. And I was already, what people would say mildly obese, meaning when I started packing on the pounds, I was already 260, which, for a guy who is 5'11.9, almost 6 feet, not quite, but almost, that's a bit heavy. The weight I am now, 210 to 180 is like perfect weight for me, and being at this weight, I can walk. When I was that heavy, not so much, So I'm going to lose another, I'm going to get to 180 because I'm still losing a pound or two every 2 months. So if I keep doing that, by summer and midsummer, I'll be at 180. And then my kneecaps and ankles will be even happier than they are. Losing another 20 pounds or 30 pounds will truly make my kneecaps and other joints happier, right? And my heart happier too. But, like this morning, I checked my blood sugar and it was 104. Very nice. And I haven't really been taking my diabetes medicine. I've been pretty good at my diet, but I still have a little chunk of chocolate. I don't eat a whole box of it in a day, but, a little nibble here and a little nibble there, and especially when it's really good. I don't waste my time eating crap. If I'm going to have a piece of chocolate, I'm going to have really good chocolate. I'm going to have a cookie. I'm going to go to my baker friend and have one of his chocolate chip cookies that are like orgasmic, right? And that's how life should be. Not say, I can't eat like that. I can't eat that. I make them all this amazing food. I must have made them more than 1,000 meals. And every time I do, well, this is amazing. Like it's the first time that he ever, hey, did you piss in this? Did you spit in this? I want to see you eat it. It's like, really? And, so so he says, I want to quit coffee, right? So he wanted to talk to me, and he, down where I'm staying, it's 40 degrees upstairs where he is, and he doesn't even put the fan on to blow the hot air down. Right? He could, and he'd be a lot warmer, but he's, like I said, his electric bill is going to be like $2,000 a month. It's like, then he's going to blame, you were here, it's your fault, and that's not how our lives should be. And that's what the great thing about John, he is the people's saint of truth. He really, really is, right? Breaks my heart. Yep. Here on YouTube. Yep. So go see that. So that's what I did I was supposed to do that for 6 years. So the first 4 months, that's what I was like right in it. Nobody else wanted to deal with these guys. I was right there, cleaning them off. The nurses wouldn't do it. Nobody would do it because they were just so, they couldn't. There were other guys who lost an arm or an eye or this. They could deal with that. But people of that nature, they just couldn't deal with. And the fact, so they got blown up in Vietnam. Helicopter to a hospital in Vietnam. They stabilize them. They put them on a C-130, and they either fly them to the Philippines at Pruitt Bay if they're going to California, or they fly them to Germany and then to the East Coast, right? And when they would put them on the C-130s, and they would stack them like, maybe 200 to 300 stretchers in these C-130s, and they would put them all on morphine. A heavy drip, so it would knock them out. So they wouldn't have to wriggling or being upset; they would just be gone, right? And so by the time, so they weren't doing heroin in Vietnam. They weren't. It wasn't until they got on the C-130 and went to either Germany or to there, and then they were kind of more stabilized, maybe operated on a couple of times to fix this or that, and then transported to a VA close to wherever they were, right? And then they put on another C-130 and flown for another 8 to 16 hours to wherever that was, right? And when they put them on that, they put them on morphine again. So by the time they would hit these VAs, these people were just stoned out of their minds, and they were junkies. That was it, And that made a whole that whole thing of Forrest Gump and Lieutenant Dan, that was what happened to like 6 million of those poor kids. And that Vietnam War, we were in that Vietnam War from 1947 to 1978. Not 75, 78. Whole Pol Pot thing. It was all about opium, oil, and tourism. That was the causes of, and Ho Chi Minh only wanted the Coca-Cola bottling for Vietnam. He went to school at Columbia, and he was our guy. He was the CIA's guy fighting the Japanese, So if you go deep into these stories, it's like, right? And it's always the same thing: money, power, stupidity, right? And now what we're experiencing is like triple down because, if you watched my morning show, and David Icke really described it quite well. Basically, we don't have nation states anymore. We have Mr. Global Baloney, right? And if you go listen to Catherine Austin Fitts or Joseph P. Farrell or over there to Dark Journalism, they go into extreme depth. And Catherine Austin Fitts used to be second command at HUD. And so she saw where all the money was going. And she was going, if we keep doing this, we've already passed the point of no return of, bankrupting the West. And they said, well, that's all right. We don't want the West to exist, Nation states. No, we're going to have a single government, centralized New World Order thing. And Catherine, if you go along, you'll be one of the people at the top. You're really smart. That's why I have this job. And she said, no. And so she did everything she could to tell people about it. And they hit her with, oh, you did this, you're corrupt, you did this, and she had to spend $6 million of her own dollars that she didn't have to prove that she didn't do it. And she took it all the way to Supreme Court and proved that, they were lying, they were cheating, they were stealing everything. Supreme Court said it, and then they said, we're going to close all the books and seal them, and no one can see it for another 100 years. And if you want to be left alone, Catherine, shut your trap, period. Just go home and do nothing until you die. Well, she didn't do that. So Catherine Austin Fitts, go Google her. She has a really nice website, Solaris, I think it's called. And she, she's talking everywhere she can, coast to coast. And like I said, Dark Journalism is a great outlet. Our friend Shirley Graceful, she does a great show. And there, Joe Rogan does a great, Joe Rogan, he gets 11 million people to watch his show a day. He only does 3 hours a day. 11 million, right? CNN for a whole day gets 0.7 people. I mean, they have like 10 different shows, and they just get 0.7. He gets 11.00, right? And so he's got 11 million people. CNN is like 700,000, right? MSNBC is 200,000 for a day. And so that's why they're going after Joe Rogan, because too many people are watching him. And he's straight up. He doesn't really, he has his own opinions, but he says that these are my opinions. But he has people come on who don't agree with his opinion, and he doesn't yell at them, and he lets them, because he's got 3 hours to explain and describe and talk about everything they want to talk about. And then he asks a few questions, and then they have this nice little conversation, and he either is convinced by them, or he tells them stuff that makes them go, I'll have to look into that, right? And he like barbecued, and he didn't do it. He had, Sanjay Gupta, CNN's doctor guy, who tells you everything you need to know, that he's following the science. Well, Joe had his homework done, and he showed where CNN and Dr. Gupta and Dr. Fauci and everybody else lies through their teeth. And he had it all. And Gupta, in those 3 hours, said, "Well, I guess you're right. Like, yeah, I guess you're right. Oh, yes, we did lie about that. I'm sorry about that. Oh, yes, we should have told the people that we lied about that, but we didn't. I'm sorry about that." And he just did that. And then CNN just went into Joe, right? So it's like right in our faces. American public is really eating the red pill. But see, the thing that's a problem is that Mr. Globaloney, he wants that because the only way Globaloney can win is by getting people to silo themselves and start fighting amongst. Because the people who are at the super top, the hidden hand and the powers that shouldn't be, and the sock puppets, maybe a million people, and we have like what 9 billion on this planet. If the 9 billion said, no, we're not going to take this, the people in China, see, China has the most to lose because they have a pyramid scheme, but instead of being like this, it's like this, meaning the people these guys down here are the folks between 16 and 30, right? And they're the people who are doing all the work, supporting this whole thing, who are in the military. All of that are those people. And everyone up here, 80% of their population in China is over 50 and above, 80%. So that means, 20% is, 50 and below. And so that this little point here that's holding everything up is only about 6%. And they're just going to get crushed and they're going to get pissed too. And the other side of the coin is that China, in America, they call it a melting pot, but we're really a salad bowl. And meaning we're not a Velveeta cheese, gloppy, ugly yellow people. No, we're this amazing diverse. We're a salad bowl. All these amazing different flavors on top of each other that make this delicious salad, right? That's America. That's its strongest point is that. And so everyone knows we're a salad. They don't want to be gloppy cheese, and they don't want to be just the tomato or the celery. They want to be that salad, right? And that's what makes America, great and working. But it's also kind of what keeps the democracy alive. So Mr. Globaloney has to destroy that in America. So it has to get all the different vegetables to fight amongst each other. And they're starting to realize, no, that's not what we should be doing, right? We should be a great salad. So that's a real problem with America. China, on the other hand, is forcing everyone to, through mind control, and that everyone is observed. Everyone has one of these things, and they got every city has millions of cameras, and they don't have millions of people watching those cameras. They have AI doing that, right? And the AI that they use is the AI that I help develop to watch traffic, meaning you're driving around and you're in the road where the shopping is, and the malls are everywhere, and the big highways over here, and there's about 20 lights, right? You see little TV cameras on top of all the lights, right? And they're looking every direction, right? Those cameras aren't looking at you. They can, but they're not. They are the eyes for the computer that are counting all the cars and see which way they're driving, and they use the algorithm to figure out, okay, we're going to make the lights do this while there's traffic doing this so they can get out of the way, or we're going to, and the Chinese took that technology and kind of, souped it up to look at people. And the souping up I worked for a company like that, and when 9/11 happened and they were, we had to build the security up in the airlines. And I went to my boss. I said, we could take our software that we use to count cars. We could teach that because it's a teachable algorithm, right? It's almost AI, not quite AI, but I forget what they call it, a workable system or some teachable system. We could teach it to look at the tells of the body, right? And I I worked one summer at a carnival. They needed me desperately because the guy who was the electrician basically, just died of cirrhosis of the liver. And so he's the only guy who could make the Ferris wheel and everything work and the big generator work and blah, blah, blah. And if it wasn't done right, they would pull into a town and the building inspector would come and say, no, you can't get a permit to do this because this will kill people. So I was at this site. I was having lunch, and I knew the inspector guy, and he was screaming at the owner of this thing and said, no, you're not getting your permit. And I walked over and said, so what's the problem, Bob? And he said, well, Al, come on, look at this. This blah, blah, blah. And I said, what if I took the responsibility, because I had a master's license at the time. I said, what if I take care of this? Oh, and he turns to the guy. So if Al takes care of it, not a problem. I'll give you the permit right here. Al, you going to do this? Yes. Okay. I said, but I need to talk to this guy just for a few minutes. So I took him over to the side. I said, okay, you see the story. If I take care of this for you, they'll give you the permit. You can do it. Otherwise, you're going to be screwed. You have to move on. And then that guy over there that I also know, he won't let you do it. And the other, if you're going to stay in this 5-county area, I know all the inspectors because I have a state license. I do work in all of them. So I have nothing to do right now. I got no big projects. My business is running itself. This summer it still looks like it's nice. Your carnival people look fun. It might be interesting. I hung out with gypsies in Ireland years before, and I really liked that style of life and that group of culture people. So I said, I'll do it, and I want this much money every week, right, in cash. And he thought about it. He said, okay, not a problem. And it was a nice chunk of change, right? I said, and you're going to, where, I need a place. I'm not going to just live in a motel. I'm living with you guys, one of those nice little RVs or trailers, or, you got to put me someplace. You got to feed me. I'm going to be part of your family here, because I understood what the whole scene was. And I, as an anthropologist, I kind of wanted to do that, right? So he goes, fine. So I go back to the inspector. I said, I'll take care of it. Here it is, Thursday. They want to open next Friday. By Tuesday, I'll have everything shipshape and come give them the permit. Give them a temporary permit so they can go pay the county the money they need to stay on this piece of property. He goes, not a problem. So he does. That guy. And then, we walk up, and the owner puts his arm around. He says, I wish you were my son. You really got this. I said, yep, I got it. And I was about 28 when that happened. And so, I, walked with him, and I said, so where are you going to bed me down? And he looks around and he goes, oh, I know the perfect place. And so he goes over to this thing, and this really amazing, ravishing woman comes out, Sophia. He goes, Sophia. And he's talking to her, and I can tell that they're speaking, they're parsing in Roma, right? So, oh, these guys are actually gypsies, right? I'll feel really good. So, anyway, so he goes, so this is Sophia. She is our mystic. She reads palms and runes, and she has her own little tent, and she's one of our big attractions, and she dances in the Hoochie Cooch room, and so she's got an extra bed in that place, and she agrees that you could be her roommate. Going, sounds good to me. So we go in there, and she brings out a bottle of vodka and a bottle of limoncello. And she goes, this is all I drink. I said, you drink limoncello? She goes, yes, I'm Italian. And vodka, I'm Russian. So you're Russian Italian? That's pretty interesting. She goes, yep, I'm a real American. And I said, and both are Roma? And she looks at me and said, yeah, I kind of hung out in Ireland, and I lived with the Roma there. He goes, really? Which tribe? And I told her, she said, that's my Uncle Jimmy. You know my Uncle Jimmy? I said, yeah, I know Jimmy. Mm-hmm. And that's when we were like in like what? Anyway, so we got a little blasted, and then, she read my palm, and I read her palm. She could read palms, yes. And she goes, "Where'd you learn that?" I said, "This woman called the Old Crone." The Old Crone. Do you know Archie? I said, "Yes." She goes, "I went to school at Trinity." I said, "This is too much." You're an American that. She goes, "Well, you said you went to school there, and you're an American." I said, "Yes, yes." So this girl and I, she's maybe 8 years older than I am, and we had a similar kind of path, but she was more in the groove because she was a Roma. Anyway, so we get blasted, and she has really good herb. Everybody smoked really good herb, so we were smoking really good herb. And she had some other little taste treats that she was a good baker that had other things in them that would be a little more hallucinogenic. So these people were totally party animal, living on another plane of existence, right in the middle of the bourgeois, Long Island, New York scene, right? It was like unbelievable. So I spent this, 2.5 months with those guys, and traveled around with them. And so, the so we got there, and they were just setting up, and so they set up the tent, and they didn't put the rides together because I wasn't there to oversee them, because I was like getting to become buddies with Sophia. Anyway, so dinner's out, and they have this big lamb. They roast the lamb. We have amazing food. We're all sitting on these blankets with pillows, and we're eating from trays. Very, very Middle Eastern. And so they had not only Russian and American, but they had a Middle Eastern influence. And they had great little psychotropic little cookies and cakes for dessert, and we're all drinking vodka and lemon jello and smoking, and we're like in the middle of this, the Macy's is over there, and the Sears is over there, and the American folk are, and no one comes over to us. I mean, they're like, "Ooh, we're waiting till Friday." There's a big sign, Friday, big opening of the Cardinal, and we just have one kick-ass party. Just have the best of times, right? And we're dancing. I'm dancing with her, and she's doing the whole, dance to the Seven Veils, and everyone's hooting and like hollering, and Sophia's got a new boyfriend, and and that was just the first 15 hours of being part of the family, and so we at about 1 a.m, everyone kind of says, "Okay, time to go to bed. We'll go to our trailer." So I go to trailer, and she mixes up me this little, she opens this like bar, and she's a total herbalist. She mixes me up, and she, "Here you go." And she's got one, I got one, and she goes, "Knock this down," right? So we knock it down, and then she has this really, really yummy lemon vinegary water, right? And we drink 2 big glasses of that, right? And we get to take off our clothes. We disrobe each other, and she actually has quite a nice shower. I love taking showers with someone who I care about, or learning to care about, or just being exposed to. It's one of my how to break the ice with someone sweet is have a shower. And it's very, she was not a Roman Catholic. She was actually Islamic. So she was all about that process of cleansing, right? So we did that. And, but she was everything. I said, "So you're really a Muslim?" And she goes, "Well, right now I am." I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "Well, I'm a great, I study history, I study religion, theology, I belong to a bunch of mystery schools. So there isn't any one religion. I kind of, I studied Kabbalah. I studied, the Hermetic Christian beliefs, So she was quite the scholar, She wasn't just a huckster. She was really quite, again, like me, a itinerant scholar. But she was part of this clan. Everyone in this carnival was, related. And so, so we take the shower, she had a gigantic, big, king-size, yummy bed. And I mean, I had to, when the boss brought me in, there was like this little bed that you'd put like a child or a dog in. And he says, you can sleep over there. But that's kind of like that nice big king size bed. So we entwined ourselves like the double helix of the DNA molecule. And we had and we never, like that night anyway, consummated it, but we did everything else. And because it was such a strenuous 12 hours, we just kind of at a certain point both fell asleep. And it was part of the stuff that we drank, right? And so around 4 in the morning, we both had to get up and pee. And that's when we kind of had the itch and we scratched it. And then we fell back to sleep, right? Then around 7, she kind of rolled over and said, this is when I normally get up, but it's Sunday, so screw it. And we scratched the itch a little bit more, went to sleep. And we woke up at about 8:30. So we got up. She made the best of Turkish coffee and nice. And I cooked, my famous mushroom, whatever vegetable you have, omelet with whatever cheese you got. And she had some nice, bread, and I toasted that up and put garlic on it and butter. So she made the coffee, I made the breakfast, and then we popped out the door around 9:10, and big mugs of coffee. And we went in different directions. She had things to do. I had to go meet the boss, get my my crew of roustabouts and see what level of competency or what experience they had. So I did that. And there were about, of the 12 guys who were the roustavouts who put stuff up, there were 4 guys who kind of knew what the head guy who died of cirrhosis of liver, they had put these machines together themselves. So they had a certain level of experience of what went where and where the bolts are and what tools to use. And so, I said, good. So let's make lists of everything. Then we're going to make tables, and we're going to put everything in where we're going to need them on the table, so we know where the tools are, where the nuts and bolts are, and then we're going to lay out. We're going to get some canvas, and we're going to put all the big pieces of metal on it, and we're going to start marking them. What this is A1, A2, how they all go together. We're going to make these lists, then draw a picture, then mark everything on the picture, and then mark all the components. So the next time we take it apart, we know what it is. And the next place we go, we can just put it together. And by the 3rd time we do this, we will know what we're doing. And everyone said, well, that's a good idea. Makes more sense than what we were doing because we had no idea. So we did that. And yes, it took us 2 days to map everything out and mark every bolt and do all of that. But then we put it together in 2 days. And so by the time, that was, only Wednesday by the time that was, and that we turned everything on and it worked. And then we kind of neatened it up so it really looked like it was ready to go. And that's when the inspector showed up, and we turned everything on. We went through, and I made a nice little checklist for the inspector to see what we did and how we did it. And I showed him how we put everything out on these tables. And he goes, yep, I knew you would do a great job, Al. Yep. So he gave the final okay, no problem, shook the hands with the boss. And didn't even need to give him a bribe, but the boss did give him a roll of tickets to pass out to all the people who work for him and other people. So there'd be more people. If you give 100 tickets to get in, 1,000 people would show up. So he's no dummy. So he gave the inspector, and that became our new marketing strategy. And so we did that. We were there for 2 weeks. They made unbelievable. I couldn't believe how much money a carnival makes between the food, the games, and then the gambling and the hoochie coo girls and everything else that this thing did. And basically, when the sheriff or head of the police came over, again, the boss gave him a roll of tickets to get in and other things to get into the other things, so they didn't have to, so just a few $100s worth of tickets was enough to buy off the police and the inspector. But they really didn't, because the inspector saw that everything was beyond ship shape. The sheriff came and saw that there were no real riffraff there, that everyone was like neat and tidy and doing a great job. So he knew that all the stores in that shopping center would be happy because they would be making a lot of money. He knew that the two biggest motels would have people from other counties coming to Carnival and staying there, and all the restaurants. So the town would probably make $1 million more than normally would for those 2 weeks. And so that did happen. Everyone made a lot of money. And so the next town we went to, everybody was happy to see us. You know, that inspector told that inspector, that police chief told that police chief. So it was, everything was ease, no disease, right? Everything was in the flow. And so, the boss just kept hugging me like, you make me, I wish you want to be my son? Why don't you marry Sophie? She'd like that. She likes you. She actually doesn't like anybody, but she likes you. Most men would have been dead by now, but every so often when she gets angry at some guy, we have to bury him out there in the woods or something. But she likes you, and so I spent almost 3 months with those guys, and then they were going to go down to Florida and just hang out in this place that they have. And so, I said, well, I'll come and visit, but I do have a number of businesses and other things I'm doing. And so she stayed with me. She kept her RV, and I had, and had this really nice place on the beach, and she really liked that. And then I took her to New York and introduced her to all my art and culture friends, and they all loved her. And I got some really good photos because we used to do, what do you call those things? We would do art events without any permits or anything right there. And she could dance so I had buddies who were musicians, and they would play, these old Jewish buddies who played clarinets, and this one drummer who had his congas, and he would play his drum, and the guys would play the clarinets, and she would dance the hoochie coo, and everyone loved it. And then all the other artist folks did their thing, and we would do these things. And we had the tacit approval of the New York City Arts Council and the New York State Arts Council and the NEA. Anyway, so she stayed, and then it got too cold for her. So we drove down in her RV, and again, I spent a couple of weeks with them, and then I saw my parents, and I took her to see my parents, and it freaking blew my parents' mind and scared my dad shitless. And my mom thought she was great, but she kind of took us over and said, honey, you are an amazing woman, a woman after my own heart, but culturally, the people here are so white, it's like they're really getting upset. So maybe you guys should just, go down to the Keys and stay at Al's place. And but I love you. You can't marry my son, though. That wouldn't go good with the rest of the family. They would freak out beyond belief. But he does that anyway, so maybe you should. And so we just laughed. And so we went down to the Keys, and then basically, I went back up to New York with her, and by that time, she stayed in Florida, and I went to New York and took care of business, and came back to Florida, stayed with them for a number of weeks, and it got to again, this is another situation where we were about to go back on the road. But I had my business, I had my art world, I had my political world, I had my environmental world, and it just didn't quite fit with all of that. But I could have said, screw all that, and stayed with the carnival, and I'd probably be owning a carnival right now. And but I didn't. And Sophie knew that, right? So I can't, I was going to go off with them, and we were going in the wrong direction. We were going to go to New Orleans for Mardi Gras. And I said, well, that's great. I can go see my friend Lester, and we can have a great time. You guys will really love Lester, and he'll love you. And so we did. And Lester put him up in his place right on Beale. And, he had a club that we kind of, put the circus, the carnival in that club That worked out really great. And we put the rides out in the parking lot, and that worked out great. And we had a great time. And then we were driving, and we did a show at, what's the name of that place? It's right in Georgia, right on the border of Florida and Georgia. First we went to St. Augustine, and then we went to the other place that has where the art school is. It'll pop into my mind. It's where the nuclear submarines are based, and where they have the only fast breeder reactor, commercial reactor there. Anyway, it's right on that river. It's named after that, and it starts with an S. Anyway, we went there, and everything was great. Everything was great. Everyone, and basically, she said to me, you have a decision to make. I said, what's that? She goes, you have to make a real choice. I said, what's that? She goes, you either, come in with us and just, marry me, and we have children, and you will end up running this place, and because, the boss really loves you as a son, or you're going to go back to your other life, right? Doing all those things you do. And you have to realize, if you do this thing with us, you see what our life is like. It's totally nomad. It's, you have been our rabbit's foot, and you have, made things flow in a way that they really haven't. We pretty much we've made more money, and we haven't had any problems with the powers that be, but we will. And you will have to deal with that. And it will bring whole other issues about your life that you've agreed before you were born to do certain things that you won't be doing. And yes, you and I will have an amazing life, and we will have amazing children, and other amazing things will occur, but you won't have done any of the stuff that you agreed to do before you came here. And that's going to be a pretty difficult karmic thing for you to deal with. You're really going to have to become a total rubber boy, really a gymnast for all of this, your life will be really interesting and loads of fun, and we will have the greatest of times, but I will absorb a whole bunch of karma from this, and you will be thrown in a whole nother direction that in your next life, you won't be doing what you should be doing over this way. So you have to really consciously be aware of this right here now, and not just say, oh, well, we really spark, and these people are really fun, and this is a great family to be part of. Or you go back to your other life, right? Because there are all these other things that you are meant to do, and you're right on this edge of doing a whole bunch of things that will be important and affect so many other people's lives. Where if you do this, you'll affect all us here. You already have, right? You've affected me, right? I'm not going to be the same. You made me I used to be a bitter person. I'm not a bitter person anymore, Our relationship has made me not a bitter person. I love you for it, and I'll always love you for it. And, you'll always be in my heart. And you'll always have me in your heart. And every now and then we will bounce into each other, and we'll have a great little affair. But you really have to make this, and I know, because she could see things better than I could. That's for sure. Because she's a soothsayer, right? She's the gypsy woman. And so basically, I said, you're right. I have to think about this. So there's a place. What is the name of that town? Savannah. That's the name of the town. And the river goes up there, right? And so we took one of the cars, and one Sunday when we weren't, we still had a week to set up, and we packed a nice little lunch and a little blankie, and we just went up this road. I looked on the map and saw that it just kept going up into, past Florida, Georgia, into South Carolina. And went up to where the hills were and rivers were. And it was like about a 3-hour drive. And it was a nice road, not through anything big. There's not a lot of traffic. It was going sideways, from the south up to the northeast, and kind of, if you kept going on that road, it would hit this other road that would take you into Charlotte. But we weren't going to go that far. We were just going to go up into the hills, and get on this other road that went along the two rivers that were up there, and just find interesting things to, you know, um, put out our blanket and look up at the trees. So we did that, and we meditated, and we sparked, and we scratched, and ate and drank, and had a very good time. Didn't bump into anybody to really question or give us any kind of dis-ease. It was all ease, and we came to a collective conscious intent of love's co-creation. That yes, I would keep on my path. She would do her path. We wouldn't test fate and karma, but we would have, it's like we'll always have Paris. We always had those 5 months, 6 months, and that we would bounce into each other here and there. And we did about 4 more times. And it was truly amazing because pretty much 3 months after I left her and went back to New York and all the other stuff I was doing, and picked up just at the right time. I mean, my business was doing fairly well on, automatic. And I came back, and just when we hit some big jobs and, needed my focus on and other artistic things, cultural things, and environmental things, and political things I was involved with kind of were coming to a hiatus. The whole thing with the Shoreham Power Plant, I needed to put 3 years of real to get people to. Again, I'm a group kind of guy. I didn't stop the power plant myself, but I was the Minister of Fun, which was one of the key components of getting those 500 people to really dedicate their lives for 5 years to stop that plant. And, we had to go into the arcane, meaning we had to commit ourselves so much to love's co-creation that God wouldn't let this plant open. And God intervened. And again, God only helps those who help themselves. We did everything you name, we did it, and we won every battle, but Ronald Reagan just kept signing executive order after executive order to bypass the constitutional, he broke every constitutional bone in America by trying to open that plant. So, but God said, well, screw these guys. So anyway, and that's when I met my second wife, Rita. It was like 2 months after I left, Sophia. So that's how things work out for me. So I kept, and when I would go into state, all my teachers were, patting me on the back in state and saying, see, we knew we could trust you. Yeah. And we gave you this real super duper fork in the road to see if you were disciplined and committed enough to do what you said you were going to do before you were brought here, right? When you were still, a car hop for Bob in Las Vegas. And so, so that was a great thing, great experience, just so much fun. And we, as a team, I learned so much about team building because these guys were just on their last legs. And when I kind of did, and the boss kind of got inspired by so he, picked up, he was getting into his 50s and he started not wanting to do it, but we made it so much fun. He said, okay, I'm going to do this. So they did. And Sophia, she basically was very interesting in that she never really got another boyfriend, but she had, she got pregnant. She was a pretty sexy woman and had her needs. So she let herself get pregnant by this guy that had all the right karmic and spiritual juice in him. Himself was kind of a flawed person, but his DNA was the DNA she was looking for. And she had a son and a daughter, twins, son and a daughter, who were quite interesting. So the next time I met her, about 9 years later, and I was in Ithaca when I met her. She just showed up there. I mean, the carnival didn't show up, but she did. And she was, in the supermarket. And Bango, there she was, like, where did you come from? And she had these two little kids with her. She goes, well, I'm going to come here and I'm going to take this course, to finish up my PhD. I said, PhD? She said, oh, yeah, I went to Trinity and I was a real scholar. And then I met these, people in Ireland who were gypsies, and they were like, brought out all of the gypsy that was in me. And then they kind of introduced me to the boss, who was related to Jimmy. And he had a carnival in New York and in Florida. So, I went there to be the gypsy, soothsayer. And but I only had, a few things to pull my anthropology degree. And I got offered to come up to Cornell and a lecture and do research. And she worked for the guy I worked for. I mean, it couldn't be any more synchronistic than that. And so we had a great 4 months, and she had 2 great little kids. We had so much fun. And then she went, to Columbia, and started her more scholarly path. And she taught everything that she learned or did in the carnival. She taught and lectured. From that point, she lectured psychology, she lectured criminology, and she lectured anthropology and sociology, all from the crux of the carnival, right? And she was really scholarly about it, because she went all the way back to Babylon and showed how their culture was about the carnival, and how Egypt was about the carnival, how Rome and Greece were about the carnival, how the Vatican was about the carnival, the Middle Ages was about the carnival. So she had quite a career. So we kept bouncing into each other's paths for a number of years, right? I mean, she didn't, she would have guys. She would pick up men like other people would go to a bakery and get donuts, right? So, but she had these 2 kids that she put all her love into, and then every so often, Bango, we'd kind of bounce into each other, and we'd have, oh, I'm not with anybody. No. And, and these kids would get older, and they had more fun. And so the last time I saw those kids, they were in their late teens, and they were heading off to college. One to Stanford, the other one to MIT. The girl went to MIT. The guy went to Stanford, studied psychology. So, and that was the last time I saw them. I kind of lost my sight of them. And so that has, after my second wife, I pretty much, and between my first and second wife, I had 5 relationships for a year or 2 each. And Sophia was one of them that were very committed. I was really, it, but I was in my 30s, and every single one of them loved me dearly. I was their guy, the best guy, and they wanted to get married and have babies. And they all had rich fathers. And all those fathers almost, they all wanted to buy me, because they had this daughter they loved the most, but she was the wild and crazy and most talented and smart one. And they thought I would be able to keep them on the farm. And every single one of those relationships was more or less destroyed by their father's intervention of that neck of the woods. But it was also these women, their clock was ticking, and they wanted to have kids. And I wasn't ready. This time around, I mean, I've been foretold, and Sophia actually read my palm and said exactly what and she read my tea leaves and said the same thing. I mean, Sophia read everything. She read my sperm. You name my sweat. She read anything that she could read about me. She would, comment, critique me through a divination of sorts. And she also said, you're going to get, in your older age, once you pass 70, somewhere in there, you're going to have another wife, and you will have children with that wife. She will be, of childbearing age, young, and you will live old enough to see those kids get into their late teens or older. You may even see your grandchildren. So, so I'm going to be around for a while. Anyway, so tell Bob naked. Oh, you're going to have to guess on that one. I am this much naked. Can you see my aureolas? I'm going to show you my aureola. Kind of cute breasts, eh? Don't you think? So, the bear. Hey, bear, how you doing? Bear, how long you been watching the old show? You're just an S-Air. S-Air, you've been on before. I think I've noticed you. And then there's Faster Boyle. So new. I'm sure you guys have been. I felt your presence. But have you been on the chat before? I barely can see the chat. You kind of have to, the nomenclature of me being able to read what you have to say. You can see that some of the cadre put everything in caps for me, so I can actually read it. But that's the story. So good to see you guys. Your energy seems really good. You don't seem like a troll or a bot. So you all had interesting moments, like Mr. Faster Boyle. Like he's, I have a couple of Irish friends who are Boyles. Are you a Celt? Are you a crone? Are you a druid? A bard? Are you any of the above? Faster Boyle? And S-Air, Southern Air. Breaks my heart. That's a sweet motif. And Mr. Bear, Hey, Al Bob. Hey, the bear. So I used to hang out in the Rainbow and in the indigenous, the AIM folk. I was always drawn to the Bear Clan. I'm not quite the bear myself, but I get along with the Bear Clan quite nicely. I have a lot of bear friends, right? So, I am of the Owl Clan, and the owl is a quite interesting bird because it not only represents within the species of the birds. They are of all of the taloned bird clan. They are the most feared, most super duper ninjas of the bird that clan, right? I mean, every animal. So around me in the wherever I go, the owls show up, right? Of every type, from the barn owl to the large owls. Around here, after I left, the owls kind of left, but we used to have up on the ridge a clan of the big owls, the ones that from their talons to the top of their head, they're about 4 foot tall. When you see them in a tree, you think it's like a person, right? And all they do is they're at the top of the tree, and they got these like telescoping eyes and radar. And when they see their thing, all they do is step off that and put out their wings. And their wingspan is, between 5 and 8 feet. I mean, when you see them coming at you, they're scary. And they, depending on how high up and where they're going, they can step off and keep get up speed, and they don't put their wings out immediately like most birds do. They just kind of shoot down like a bullet, and then just where they need to control, where they're going to go, they shoot out their wings. And if they shoot out their wings, like they love to, our little riverbed that goes from the blacktop up to here. We're at the end of the cul-de-sac. It's 2 miles. And there are three places where there are big sharp bends, and there's like the mountain going up like this. The road is mostly at a 45-degree going down. Someplace steeper, someplace less. But nothing less than 20 degrees. So there's two places. One's called a brick corner because it gets so many. The people just used to throw in bricks there to like keep it from sliding down the hill. And so they would be way up to the next ridge and be right there, and they see the lights coming up the road at night, and they would just step off, shoot like a rocket ship, and just before you came around that curb, they would be there flying through the air, and they throw up their, just as the headlights, because you're going up, the headlights would be going up, and it would be right there, and you'd see this white missile coming at you, and then these gigantic wings shoot out, and whoosh, right, they just miss the hood and go right over the windscreen and over the thing and down the hill, right, flying away. You wouldn't see them because your heart would be in your mouth. And, they knew when I was driving up, they wouldn't be that scary, but they would do it. They would shoot their wings out further up, so they would slow down and kind of do this in front of my headlights and then go off, like, hey, how you doing? And so, but since I left, they've gone. And when I moved into the deep green, they showed up 20 years ago. And when the rich people started to show up in 2020, the animals, one of the morons from Florida shot a Bobby or Jimmy or some Y, the old bear, and it was a mommy bear. And she had her cubs. And I used to have my compost pile at the very, very other end of my property on the other side of the stream. And I would leave it there. And she would go through it, pick out what she wanted, roll around in it, play with the kids in it. They'd eat out of it. And then she'd kind of go up to the stream and go fishing. And she'd go fishing. There was this nice flat spot that she could watch the fish, just grab one. And she would just wait there and like eat in front of, like she'd be like 3 football fields over at the end of my property, road, stream on the other side, then the hill going up. And she would go there after she like went through the compost, and she would get a few fish. The kids would come over and they would eat a fish, and they would just like sun themselves and then saunter off whenever they felt like. But they'd wait until I came and noticed them, and I'd say, hey, how you doing? And they just kind of look up and go back to sleep or, get another fish. But they never came. They could very easily just come across that stream, come across that road, and come across my 2 football fields and, mess with me. But never in, 15 years did they ever do that. And there was a couple of caves that they would sleep in, and they were really sweet, nice. Remember, and everyone knew that they were there. And this Floridian guy got a house on the other side, and he drove down that road and saw them and just shot them. They weren't doing anything but just hanging out on the side of the road. And everyone nearly burnt the guy to the ground. And got the warden in there. He arrested him. The guy got 10 years in jail, $100,000 fine because that bear was had the tag in their ears, had a little collar. He was totally protected, and he never did anyone any harm. And that was like all the animals left. They went, 2 or 3 hollers down where the rich people haven't hit yet. So my little garden of paradise is changing. So, and that's the world. It changes. And I've seen that I've been in about 7 different places like this. And I always find the amazing place, and I get, somewhere between 5 and 20 years to stay there. And then that's when, the people come in and gentrify the place and turn it into a, cesspool of materialism. I mean, the guys who are buying up everything, it's called Big Lake what is the term? Mercantile. Big Lake Mercantile LLC. Mercantile goes back to the Babylonian, which means magic money. That's what mercantilism is, magic money, meaning dark money, meaning satanic money. Because that's what Satan is all about, that materialism, that ego's materialism, that we live, that's what, Marx wrote, his dialect of materialism was, who paid for that? Mr. Rothschild. He wanted communism and socialism to be the loyal opposition to capitalism. And that's where we're at. And, we are following that Fabian socialist motif, which is run by the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds. And see, those guys are just, again, poster boys, just like, Mr. Facebook and Mr. Tiny Penis, Micro Penis, and, Mr. Jeffy Boy, and, all et al. They're not brilliant. They're not geniuses. Mr. Definitely not, Elon, that boy, he's a total moron. All these people are just the poster boy for this new world order. And that's, we're supposed to be envious of those guys, so we'll sell our souls for chump change like those morons did, right? It's one thing, to be a billionaire when your dollars are worthless, like toilet paper. What's the worth of that? Where you can be a millionaire in the joys of life's love's co-creation, where that, that wealth, that prosperity, that abundance is, you can't put a price on it, right? Priceless, right? So, earlier, the morning show was The Meaning to Life. And this show, I forgot what I called it, but we are heading into this, this 2022 is just going to be off the hook, but not really. Because all we have to do is truly have conscious intent on what we want in our life and serve love's co-creation, because you can't create anything that's made that's not love's co-creation is an illusion. Anything made from ego, which is this whole world that we're, think we're in, that we have these blinders and we believe blindly that this is the only truth there is. Everything else, so you don't know what you're talking about. I live in the real world. Sorry, buddy. You're a moron. You are a blinded belief addict, Because unless you're serving love's co-creation, unless you realize that your life isn't about you, but the we in me, unless you are down with the work in progress of all our relations of ascension, sorry, buddy. And as Shakespeare put it in Hamlet, when Hamlet's buddy, they're the only two left after they had a war and killed everyone, his mother, his uncle, everyone. And his buddy is like, oh, well, we won. Oh, we're the kings. We run. Woo-wee. And what's wrong, Hamlet? You're more depressed than you normally are, and you're a real depressed guy. What's the problem? And he goes, I'm worried. And he goes, what are you worried about? I'm worried about tomorrow. Well, tomorrow we have things to do, big deal, but we won. No, it's not tomorrow. It's the tomorrow and the tomorrow and the tomorrow and the tomorrow. And, Hamlet realized that he had put himself in his own friggin' hell by doing what he did, and he will be stuck there until he can let it go and forgive himself and forgive everyone else, and then start loving everybody moment to moment and being his best. And he loathed himself that he got into a place of he wasn't getting out of that hell of his own making. And everyone on this earth, and that was the whole meaning of Hamlet, is that we live in our own, and that's the last line of the place, and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, is that we live in our own hell of our own making, of our linear addiction to our belief of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. So, let's see. Anybody got some more interesting things to say? Let's see. South there. Let's see. In a meditation, I was told to forgive my prejudice. Yes, and all your prejudice is your opinion. That's the only. Anything else is like if you think hating black people is prejudice. No, that's racism. If you dislike any singular race just because the color of their skin, that's racism. Because all humans are there's only Homo sapiens sapiens. There is no species of black Homo sapiens sapiens. It's like dogs. There's a Chihuahua and a Great Dane. They're both dogs. They may be different breeds, but they're both dogs. They're both canine, and that's us. Whatever me, right? This white boy here. I am an African American that is, melanin challenged, So that is the story, glory, right? So, Mr. Air, you don't have to have prejudice, right? You just let it go. You don't let those words or thoughts get inside your head, right? And you don't put blinders on. You widen your perspective, so you see. Oh my Lord, we're all our relations. We're all in the great. We're all water, right? So we're in the Great Lake, which is the Great Link. And what does water represent? It represents truth and life. And so that's what you have. You have to forget your prejudice about life and truth, right? Because the only truth there is love. And the only life there is love. And those two things go together as co-creation, truth and love. Werner Page, RN, what does that mean? Come on, Werner, you have to be, you might get bopped out of here because when Mr. Bear just says, hey, Al Bob. So that shows to me that more or less it's a human being and not a troll or, a bot. But Val, is like, I have no idea what you are. So you're getting close to being bopped out of here unless you can say what you are. Come on. You going to tell me what you are? Then I think we're just going to I used to be very patient with everyone who showed up. And until, and Werner, if you want to connect, next time you come with a different name, you might be at least, Mr. Fast Boyle was, and Mr. South Air were, and Mr. Bear, I could remember, see energetically that they were humans. Now, they still may be trolls, don't know, but you have been made an example of a Werner. And, the one Werner I knew was Werner, but he was Werner. What is a bot and its purpose? A bot is an AI or, there's a term, AI is mean artificial intelligence, but there are artificial representations on the internet that are out there, and there's millions of them, and they just troll away. They just kind of go at whatever, and they come into the chat or into someone's software or into someone's universe, and they try to take it over, try to mess with it, try to disconstrue, and And the Headless Horseman did that to us, but he was a troll. He came back as Rumpelstiltskin. I mean, that's not what he called himself, but I called him right away. I knew who he was. And so I just called him Rumpelstiltskin. And Rumpelstiltskin, if you know the Grimm's Fairy Tale, Grimm's Fairy Tales, probably one of the best books you can, because it is an intense metaphor of the Bible and everybody's religion and everyone's political structure and everyone's essence of magic. And all of the different religions and all the different political structures and all the things that deal in power are all black magic, right? And if you can see it for what it is, you can observe it. You can learn from it. You can say, I'm not going to do that, or see what they're doing to do this. And, then I'm going to do my best to do love's co-creation and service to just kind of push that, because all you have to do to deal with negative thoughts or negative words or negative anything is just push it out of the way. How you get, threads, right? And all these different IP addresses show up on your thread. And if you don't want to see that one, you just go whoop and take it right off your screen, right? It's still kind of there, but you're not going to see it. You're not going to be influenced by it. So you can just whoop. And so any bad thoughts, any bad words, any bad actions, you could go whoop. And that's kind of what I did to Mr. Werner, because he wouldn't quite, at least Mr. Bear, Mr. Boyle. When I say Mr., it doesn't really reference to your gender. You could call you Ms. or it, but at least energetically, I can see that these guys, and everyone is a guy and everyone is a gal. And pretty much, they're the gendery thing. There was a great book called Childhood's End, and in that storyline, there were three: a guy, a girl, and this other entity that was needed to reproduce, right? They kind of, so the guy thing wasn't as guy as we are, and it wasn't as girl as we can be. And that's pretty much what defines, there's this scale of orientation, sexual orientation. And that's all it is a scale, guy, girl, and everybody in between, right? So that's kind of why we seem to have, but transsexuals have always been around, meaning, like I said, I built all these glam and, clubs, what do they call those things? Where guys dress up as women and perform. It's a term for those guys. And a lot of them weren't homosexual. They just like wearing dresses and dressing up like women, And so, and that was just part of that, scale of orientation. And so I was very blessed to, New York City was this town that had 18 million people, that had like 18 million different villages of all kinds of folk. And everyone kind of got along. And people who would come into New York who didn't understand it would get freaked out. Oh, my. I remember one time on the subway, and every time I was on the subway or bus, I'd always be reading a book. That was a good way to hide in plain sight. I'd just be reading a book and or a newspaper. And you could like peer over and watch everybody, but you could just do that. Right? So I was, sitting by the door. I always, if I found a seat right by the door, it had a armrest on one side, and you were, easy to get out when it was time. If you were in the middle of the seat and it was crowded, to get out when it was time to get out could be tough. You could be left to go to the next stop. Anyway, that's where I would always sit if I was going to sit. And I was sitting there, and across from me, they had the big map of the subway map. And this woman, you could tell she was not from New York, right? She had I Love New York, like, handbag. New Yorkers don't have I Love New York handbags. And definitely a tourist. And she looked at the map like it's like she's lost. She has no idea what train she's on or where she's heading. And even though, above the map, there's this little thing that says what train you're on. And so she doesn't know how to read the map. She doesn't even know that that's right there tells her what train she's on, which way it's going, and where it's heading. And this wasn't a new car, but new cars now has the LED thing that tells you everything, So anyway, so she's up there looking at it, and I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll get up and see if she needs a hand to know where she's going. But before I can do that, some guy just come, where you going, man? Oh, where you going? Let me. Oh, you want to go? Oh, okay, this way. Oh, you're not. Okay, okay. Next up, we're gonna get up, and I'm gonna just take it. And the woman screams, "Leave me alone! Leave me alone!" And that's when I kind of I said, "Excuse me, man. This gentleman is just trying to help you. He is just a New Yorker, and you are a foreigner." Well, I come from America. I'm from Boise. And I said, that's what I'm saying. You're a foreigner. You don't understand that New York City is a different planet. You're an ET. Now, I'm a diplomat, and I travel the world, and I've been to Boise. So he is just trying to help you. And he goes, that's right. All I want to do is help. All I want to do is help. And now, if I was you, if you want a real experience, what's your name? Bob. So Ethel, Bob, Ethel. He is your new New York City friend. He doesn't want anything from you. No, I just want to help her. See, that's what a New Yorker is. Very hospitable, just wants to help. So I would say, if Bob wants to help you, let him show you what train, and let him take you to where you want to go, and let him tell you his story. And this will be the most amazing, thing in your life. And by the way, here is my business card. And if you have a problem at all, call me on that. I have, it goes to my little pager here, and I will see that it's Boise. If you're coming from a page, or if you're coming, just leave a message. Any payphone has little buttons. You can boop 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 boop. And those little buttons say what letter it is, and if you hit it, it'll. And she goes, oh, gee, thanks. Okay, Bob, you can take me. So that's New Yorkers, right? They're just nuts. They're not sociopaths. They're not psychopaths. And they're not even neurotic. They're just they've had a few too many cups of coffee. And it's kind of in the drinking water. So, Lynn, the purpose of a bot is to disrupt the community, right? So after we had a little rash, and that's why I've made it so the only people who can come on the chat is people who can, prescribe or subscribe, right? And they have to be in the subscription for at least 10 minutes, right? So anyway, that is, oh, look at that. 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. I love it when that happens. So I think, what time is it now? Oh, 12 midnight. And my battery, I think I'm going to go. So I hope you enjoyed this show. I hope it was somewhat edifying, entertaining. And remember, don't believe a word I say. And if you want to get a hold of me, the dudeawake42 at Gmail. And if you want to put something in my PayPal, I'd really appreciate it. It's kind of getting towards the end of the month. And the only thing that's saving me from economic, I haven't been able to get this. This is what I would be doing in the winter months over at the Deep Green, because I'd be snowed in. Like last year, I was snowed in from Christmas Eve to Valentine's Day, right? And so, and once I got out on Valentine's Day, I, went to my friends down south and spent a couple of weeks until it got warm enough that it wasn't going to snow again, like mid-March. So I hope I can get out of here. I have some appointments in mid-February, so I hope I can get out of here within at least the next 2 weeks. But it's been interesting. It still is interesting, and it's been a blessing to be here at Casa de la Wands and the Hill, and I'm here to do my best, as I hope all of you are. And so, the Bear, Faster Boyle, and South Air, I hope to see you along with the rest of the cadre, and all is a blessing. You are all a blessing to me, and I'm Happy that you're all here. Anthony, Lynn, Jane, South Air, and good old Lana. Okay, here I go. I love you guys. You stay well now.